Doomscrolling. Dictionary.com named it one of its new words we created because of coronavirus. Today we'll look at what doomscrolling is, what it does to us, and how to stop. I'm Dr. Nishi Bhopal. I'm a physician specializing in integrative psychiatry and sleep medicine. From COVID-19 to racial injustice to riots to wildfires to climate change, I'm sitting here in the middle of a heat wave. It feels like there's no end to bad news these days, and there's no end to the amount of information out there. Not only are we in the middle of a pandemic, we're also in the middle of an infodemic, which is defined as an overabundance of information, some accurate and some not. Because of this overabundance of information, it leads us to seeking more and more information, feeding into this endless cycle that is now called doom scrolling, which is when we're scrolling on our phone looking endlessly at different news topics, or doom surfing, which is defined as doing it on the computer and surfing the web. Whether you're doom scrolling or doom surfing, it can have multiple negative impacts on mental health and even on physical health. Why do we engage in doom scrolling in the first place? Well, it's kind of like a coping mechanism. It's a way to feel a sense of control when things feel like they're out of control. By wanting to be informed, it's a way to make ourselves feel safer. However, it actually contributes to worsening anxiety and depression. Our brains have evolved to look out for dangerous stimuli. When we're consuming this information, our brain is actually doing what it's evolved to do, what it's supposed to do. However, it can have counterproductive effects. Overconsumption of the information can be like eating junk food. It's like junk food for the brain. When we're eating junk food, we know it's not good for us, but it can be hard to stop. Consuming this information leads to a vicious cycle. When we feel anxious and overwhelmed, we want to get more information, which then leads to more catastrophizing, more worrying, more ruminating, and then seeking more information, and then the cycle continues. Over time, this leads to an increase in stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. This then feeds into issues with sleep or issues with focus and attention, even issues with brain fog and fatigue. The increased levels of stress also foster unhealthy behaviors like overeating. Is doom scrolling all bad? Could there be an upside? One of them might be feeling more connected to the world at large, especially right now as most of us are isolating and sheltering in place. It's a way to feel socially connected. Another upside is that it might actually put our own problems into perspective. We might see that there are bigger issues happening in the world, and it might make our problems not seem quite as significant or quite as overwhelming. Another upside potentially is that for those of us coming from a place of privilege, it opens our eyes to issues like social justice and racial justice that we may not have been aware of or attuned to beforehand. Although there may be some silver linings to doom scrolling, there is a continuum between being informed and being overwhelmed. And also keep in mind that there is a selection bias with media and social media and the news, where they get more clicks and ratings from promoting scary or sensational news stories. And so consuming this repeatedly can actually make the world seem more frightening and more dangerous than it actually is. Not to downplay all the serious issues that are happening at the moment, but there are good things happening in the world as well. One coping mechanism is to actually expose yourself to those things also, to balance it out by reading uplifting and happy news stories. It's also very important to set boundaries with the amount of time you're spending looking at the news and consuming this media. So there's a few ways to do that. One is to set a timer whenever you're going in to look for information. Another thing to do is to set a cutoff time. So I recommend at least an hour before bed, you stop looking at the news and stop scrolling through your phone. One thing that made a really big difference for me was to turn off all notifications on my phone. Those can just be really distracting and actually can create more stress throughout the day as your phone keeps buzzing and dinging with all of this information that is there. It's not going anywhere. You still have access to it, but you don't need to be informed about it every second of the day. A couple of other tips I recommend are to pay attention to how you're feeling when you are consuming this media. If you notice that you're starting to feel more tense, maybe you're experiencing some tightness in your jaw or in your neck or your shoulders, maybe you're experiencing some discomfort in your abdomen or your stomach, perhaps you're experiencing headaches or even eye strain, or other physical symptoms of stress and tension, that is a cue to stop scrolling and stop reading and to take a break. And another tip is to be intentional when you're going in looking for information. When you open up your phone or you go online to look at the news, go in with an intention of seeking some specific information. Maybe you want to get an update on what's happening with the wildfires in California, for example. So go in and be intentional, and then after a few minutes, you can even set a timer for this, ask yourself, did I find the information that I needed? This will help prevent you from going through the endless cycle of doom scrolling. Sign up for my weekly newsletter to get bite-sized tips on well-being sent directly to your inbox. The link to the newsletter is in the YouTube video description and is also available on my website at intrabalance.com, intrabalance.com.